Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted, and I do appreciate that. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question about the video, some constructive criticism, if you have a video to suggest, or you just want to say hi, or tell me how you do things, all those are great things to leave in the comment section. Oftentimes on Thursdays we do 3 different projects, and I thought today would be a good day to do something I've been meaning to do for a while, and that would be to talk about setting slabs or stones that are cut flat on both sides and have relatively vertical edges. There's some different ways that I do it, and I have a few examples here. A couple of these methods would work just fine with abstract shapes, and I also have a video that talks about how to set just about anything. I think it's called How to Rock Your Favorite Rock or something like that. I made it a long time ago, but that sort of a frame prong setting works really well for just about anything, including slabs. But I thought I'd show you 3 different ways that you could do it, and I came up with some designs with some flat stones that I have, and hopefully we'll make something kind of cool. Before we get started, though, I wanted to thank some groups of people. First, my patrons, who are my core group of supporters. It's a great group of people. I have 2 new ones, Steve S. and Michelle R. Thank you for signing up. I appreciate your support, and I think that you'll find that the group of people over there are super nice, as well as really smart and knowledgeable. So it's a great community, and I want to thank them all for being such a great community. Thanks for that. My other group is my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 19,600, I believe, and that's amazing. Thank you for that. Thanks for the comments, too. It's particularly nice when someone tells me that they've gotten something useful from one of my videos or they've learned something new. That's the kind of thing I like to hear. Thank you for that. I also appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and Super Thanks. Those help with the cost of materials as they've gone up significantly lately, so thanks for that. All right, well, let's do these 3 different ways to set a slab. This is one of my design idea sketchbooks you can get on my merch store. I like them. They're a great way to keep track of your projects, and they have this little dot matrix in the background that helps me keep my drawings a little more symmetrical. Not my strongest suit. But, they also, the more recent ones have some different charts on the back. This one has a conversion chart between fractions of an inch to decimals, to the metric system in millimeters, which I use pretty frequently. There's another one that I usually attach to the video that has American wire gauge to inches and millimeters as well. Okay, so here's what we got. Like I said, once in a while I buy a stone and it'll be kind of a flat piece. Like here's this is the one I'm going to use for this one, and it's just a piece of tiger's eye, but it's more of a disc than a cabochon, and so sometimes I like to set those a little bit differently. This one, I have a bunch of these ocean jasper slabs that I got years ago, and they're real pretty, but they're kind of weirdly shaped and flat, so I've set those in various ways over the years. A lot like I'm going to do this one here, with kind of a frame around it. I had one that was broken in half and it was jagged, so I took it on my lapidary wheel over there and I ground it flat, so I'd have kind of more of a tab. And then I thought we could set one of these with a bezel like this, and I kind of came up with a little simple design for it. I have this. This looks like a cabochon, but it's pretty much flat on top, flat on bottom, and the sides are relatively vertical. So I'm going to call it a slab, even though it's a teardrop shape. And we're going to set this one with a piece of sheet on the back, and I'm going to put some tabs that come up from that in a few spots. I'm also going to cut out this design on the back. And these tabs are going to be made out of 12 gauge square wire that's been flattened in the rolling mill. So we'll just bend those down over that. And finally, this one's going to have kind of prongs on both sides. I was going to do just kind of straight prongs on either side, so like it would go in like this on both the top and the bottom, and then have this circle around it. I actually pre-made the circle to save some time here. So So they'll be soldered to the inside, or they would have been just plain wires, then we'll bend them over either way. But I thought, let's make it a little fancier and do something that comes to a point on each one on either side, so you can see the stone through here as well as through there, and it's held kind of in place by those prongs on both sides. And then we'll just add a bail to it. These kind of things being shaped like this, sort of, and we'll use 18 gauge round wire for that. So let me go over the materials here for these ones. I'm probably going to use a couple of bails I made for another video just to save time too. This one I'm just going to have to split a chain and make a connection to it. This one I have a pre-made bail, and this one I have one that pinches over that I made for a video a while back. If you go to my findings playlist, there's a whole bunch of different bail videos if you like to swap up your or change out your bail. So, alright, so materials. This one I'm going to use 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip, which is 4.76 millimeters tall. I may file it shorter depending upon how it looks. And the thickness I'm going to use is 26 gauge, which is 0.41 millimeters. This is going to be 10 gauge square up here, and that is 2.59 millimeters if I recall correctly. And I'll probably use some 12 or 14 gauge square wire to create little posts for that to be mounted on top of that bezel that I'm going to create for this. And the top of the bezel will probably be 26 gauge sheet or 22 gauge sheet, something like that. This one is going to be 22 gauge sheet, the bottom. And like I said, this is going to be 12 gauge wire that's been flattened to about, I don't know, a millimeter or less in thickness. And we'll make tabs out of that. This will probably be 18 gauge round wire. These will probably be 20 or 18 gauge for those little loops too. This is going to be 12 gauge square. Like I said, I already made that piece. And these are going to be 18 gauge round. 12 gauge square is 2.01 millimeters if I recall, and 18 gauge is 1.02 millimeters. This will probably be 18 as well. I think that's about it. So let's start by making a bezel for this one. I'm going to do it pretty much just like you make a normal bezel, except instead of going around the stone this way, I'm going to be going around it this way. So let me find some bezel material. Of the three designs, this one is probably going to need a little bit of adhesive to hold it in place. I'll probably epoxy it after we do the little photo shoot at the end that I do for the video and the thumbnail and stuff, and just put it in there and kind of make it look set, and then I'll glue it tomorrow or something. Okay, I never like to do these on a corner, so I'm gonna start a bend part way in here a little bit. Try and get it pretty straight up and down. And then we can kind of go from there. Okay, so we want it to be relatively snug there. So I'm going to give myself just a skosh extra on the bezel here for filing purposes. This kind also, I used to have some of these. I have one that kind of looks like it. This one is electroplate held together like that, but I had some of these that had a real straight top, little slabs cut out of geodes or something, and that kind of thing works well with this sort of a bezel top like that too, and with the crystals hanging down. So if you have something like that, Edie wants me to do something out of this one here. It's got a little bit of a broken top. I think it used to have crystals going around there. And it's relatively fragile, so I'll have to come up with something interesting to do with that one, but not today maybe. That one doesn't have a good enough side to do something like this on it. You'd have to prong set it or something. Or I guess we could flatten the top of the lapidary wheel if you have access to one. Okay. If you're new to my channel, I use hard silver sheet solder, which looks like that. I occasionally use a little bit of paste in one or two situations. This is a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It draws in atmospheric air through there and only has the one acetylene tank. It doesn't have an oxygen tank. So it's not as hot as oxyacetylene, but it's great for silver. So I use a #1 tip, and that's pretty much most of the questions that people ask me frequently. So if you have other questions, feel free to ask. I will do my best to answer if I know the answer. Although there are a great many things I do not know the answer to. Unlike when I was 18, then I knew everything. Hard silver sheet solder melts at about 1450 degrees, or flows, I should say. If you're curious, the percentage of silver in the solder is 75%, I believe, for this stuff. And being a higher percentage of silver means it'll polish up a little bit more like sterling silver, which is 92.5%. And that's desirable, I think. That's pretty close, I think. I think that'll work out just fine. Alright, I think I'm going to use a little 22 just because it's going to have some pieces of wire anchored to it. 26 is pretty flimsy, and if you're going to attach something that's going to have some torque applied to it occasionally, it probably will not be strong enough, so I'm going to use slightly thicker stuff. So I'm just going to a strip of that. And this is 22, which is 0.66 millimeters. Okay, for this I'm just going to flux it, dry the flux, and then drop a few pieces of solder in there. Heat from the outside towards the base, and that should draw the solder right up into the seam. As long as they're touching the bottom and the sides, we should be just fine, because it just needs to adhere to both of them. So we want both the bottom and the side piece to reach 1450 degrees at about the same time, if you're new to this. The top piece being kind of sitting up like that exposed is more directly affected by the flame. The other piece being a little bit harder to get up to temperature, so you have to kind of really try to dump the heat into that lower piece. You can do it from behind if you have one of those little platform kind of dealies with the tripod. I just want to make sure that we get flow all the way down the entire thing. Just trimming off the excess now. I realized I just started doing it without telling you what I was doing, because I was starting to kind of get into the flow of things, and just that's kind of what I like about doing this. Kind of get lost in what you're doing sometimes. Okay, I'm going to file this flush so that you can't see any kind of line there anymore. And you can brace this in something if you want to, but I'm kind of an air filer, which people get on my case about occasionally. I do brace it against things on occasion if I need to. That's a pretty good fit. So I cut this already. It's slightly long, but I want it to be slightly long. And I think I'm just going to find a little bit of scrap 14 gauge square that I have laying around here. Where do you think we should do this? I have it drawn as pretty far out. You could do it like there and there, or we could do it closer in. I think further out is probably going to be better. So, okay, let's try and get these the same distance from each side. I'll use dividers to do that. So I do something called pick soldering, where I pick up a little bit of solder on the end of my pick and heat the piece up to the soldering temperature, and then when it's about the right temperature I touch it there and it should just jump on there. That's a really useful technique. It's not necessary for most things, but it speeds things up sometimes. So if you're interested, I'll put a link up there for you to a video about it. It's one of those skills that helped me to become quite a bit better. Gives me more control. This is a trick you can do if you're having trouble seeing the line. Let's try that again. That'll get us pretty close. I'm going to cut this off near that and then file it down to it. So I have these soldered to the kind of the back side of this because they were laying flat like that. So I'll solder it to the back side of this one too. But we want to make sure we get it lined up nicely. Find a little bit of 18 gauge round. Just make them with the round ends. It's moved a little bit. So I just kind of pushed it that way a little bit. That should be good. I think we got a good solder joint everywhere. So I'm going to put this one in the pickle, and I'll put it together for you at the end after I polish it. And we can start on the second one now. So, if you recall, it's going to be this one. It's going to have a flat sheet with some cutouts on it, which I already kind of sketched out on here. So this is the lip that goes around the outside of the stone. Stone, I made it, the sheet just slightly bigger than the stone. Okay, and so this line here is where the outside of the stone is going to be. This is going to be that lip that goes around it. And then right here, 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 and here are all going to get cut out with the saw. So that'll be kind of our first endeavor, I think. And I already flattened some of this 12 gauge square wire so we can mount prongs like that. I don't know though, these might be a little bit thick. I might need to roll this just a tiny bit more to thin it out slightly. Or I suppose we could just hammer it. But okay, so let's go saw this. So I did some drilling here in these spots, and this is a 00 on the blade. So let's see if I can do this without breaking too many of these. That's not too bad for me. I'll clean it up with a Dremel, and then we'll figure out how the stone sits on there, and we'll put those tabs on. Okay, a couple of things I did. I cleaned it up, and I added this jump ring at the top to put the bail through. I also marked where I wanted these prongs to be, and I took some of this flattened 12 gauge wire, made a little staple shape out of it, and then we're going to solder it right where I made those marks. The staple shape, after I made it like this, I tilted those in to match the curve of the sides here, hopefully. Little flux on there. And I already have this other one too, and we'll add that one on in a minute, but I better cut myself some more solder. I try to kind of dry this slowly because it boils and sometimes it moves things out of position as you're drying it. So we'll let that pickle, and we can start work on the third one. Okay, for this last one I kind of looked at the thickest part of this. It's actually not symmetrical all the way around. And I use that kind of as a guide to how big to make these out of 18 gauge wire. I wanted it to stick out just a little bit above those like that. And so what I've done is I've made a cross across this to find the 4 different points straight across from each other. And I've tried to line these up like that in a magnesia block. So I poked them down. I think I need to push this one further down. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try and solder those on like that. Melted that one on the other side, so I'm going to have to make a new one of those. Let's see if we can do that. I made another one. I think I got it that time. Okay. I'm going to make a little ring out of, I think, maybe 16 gauge round wire. Let me just make a little ring out of 16. And like I said, I have a pre-made veil I can put on there. And we can pickle it with the other ones. I'm going to attach that right there. Make sure I have some solder. After this, the last thing we'll do is put that veil on there. This is one of those situations. The reason I melted that one is I didn't get the ring hot enough part, and it's much more massive than the rest of it. And I accidentally spent too much time on the prong there. And that ended up causing me some problems. Oh, there's flux there. I did, it won't hurt to do it again. This is kind of my standard bail that I use for a lot of simple events. Now the reason I can do this without worrying about the rest of the stuff come off is because I'm just going to heat this, and it's a separate piece, and so as long as I don't overheat, get too much bleed off over there, I should be able to just pick that closed right there. If you need to, you can use a different kind of solder like easy or something, lower temperature. Okay, still moving, looks like it's soldered closed. I'm going to go ahead and pickle that, and I'll bring back the final products on all three of those shortly. And I want you to tell me which one you like best in the comments if you get a chance. Thought I'd show you the final product. Here's the first one. Like I said, I haven't glued that one in yet, so I'll probably burnish that down and polish that a little bit more once it's done. This one is all set. I didn't match that exactly, but it's close. And then this one, I'm kind of most pleased of all about this one. I think it's kind of fun. You can see all the way around the stone, and it's kind of just set that way. So I like them all. Alright, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. Okay, well that was 3 different ways to set a slab stone. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And I'd love it if you'd take a moment and check out my main channel page. I have been doing videos like this at 3 per week for about 3 years, so there's a huge catalog of videos on my YouTube channel. I think there's almost certainly something that you'll find useful or enjoyable over there. So check some of those out and make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And don't forget to hit the video description down below. There's a way to access my newest ebook, which is a guide to all of the tutorials from 2024. It includes things like pictures of my sketch, pictures of the final piece, a list of materials you need to make it, a difficulty rating, although that's kind of subjective on my part, as well as some additional notes about each project. You know, things like whether I liked doing that one, whether I ran into problems, how I would do it differently if I ran into problems, stuff like that. So it's a useful guide and gives you access to a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips. It's also a great way to support my channel if you want to, so thanks for that. There's also a link to my merch store where you can get those nice idea sketchbooks to keep your sketches in. And there's a link to my Patreon page if you want to check out that community over there. It's a great group of people with a lot of knowledge. Thanks for watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.